In this video, I'll be running through what a reasonable CPA target is. So we'll break down the CPA equation and how it relates specifically to Meta or CPM-based advertising. So we won't be looking at Google Ads here. We'll specifically be honing in on Facebook. So what's a reasonable CPA target that you should be looking at when you're looking to scale your new customer acquisition? The short answer is that acquiring a new customer for under $50 as a new customer CPA is very, very difficult to do, particularly at scale. And the reason why this is the case is because CPA is a function of the cost per click and the conversion rates on site. And on the next slide, I've put down a matrix of how conversion rates and CPCs need to relate to each other to then produce a $50 CPA. What we can see here is any combination pushed onto cold audiences is incredibly impressive if you can achieve it. Now, these numbers are by no means impossible. And in fact, a lot of our clients are sitting on a combination of these numbers. A lot are sitting even lower and are achieving better results than this. But as you'll see in a second, these are unrealistic targets as you look to actually scale budgets. So just taking a look at a few of these columns, for example, we can see that if you have below a $1 CPC, you can have conversion rates sitting between 1% to 2%. Now, having below a $1 CPC is very difficult to achieve on complete cold audiences to begin with. Achieving a conversion rate above 2% on cold audiences is also very difficult to achieve. So if you get higher CPCs, you then need to achieve higher conversion rates, which becomes unrealistic. If you have lower conversion rates, you then need to achieve incredibly low CPCs, which also becomes unrealistic. So all of these numbers here are very, very difficult to achieve. And if you're achieving a combination of them, and once again, this is on cold audiences, on new customer acquisition, then you're doing a very, very good job. Unless, number one, your product is under $100. If your product is under $100, you're automatically going to get higher conversion rates, as people will always convert better on cheaper products. There's a direct linear correlation between the price of a product and the conversion rates on the back end of the site. And you're also generally going to get lower CPCs. You can get people in with an ad that's selling a $50, $60 product in comparison to an ad that's selling a $2,000 fridge. Now, the downside here is that a $50 CPA, if you're selling a product that's cheap, that's less than $100, very unlikely that you're going to be profitable. If you have a $100 AOV and a $50 CPA, that's only a 2 ROAS. And so you're either going to need incredibly strong repeat purchasability on your brand and the products that you're selling, or you're going to need to achieve incredibly strong numbers here. You'll need 50-cent CPCs at 2% conversion rates, 3% conversion rates, which once again are still doable, but it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to do. The number 2 exception to this is if you have incredibly strong existing brand presence. If your brand has already spent, let's say, above $10 million on above and below the line media, you already have an incredibly large existing customer base, and you have a very large existing user base that knows about your brand but might not have purchased yet. So achieving sub $50 CPAs actually becomes very doable in this circumstance. An example of this is if you think of any big skincare brand where you've been seeing TV ads for the last 2 to 3 years, I can guarantee that if you go into the back end of their Meta account, and the reason I can say this is that we've seen in the back end of Meta accounts of very large brands like this, CPAs are incredibly low. And the reason being is everyone knows the brand, everyone trusts. There's really not much objection handling that's needed within the actual creative. And it's just a reminder that the brand exists and that you should repurchase. And so they normally achieve very high click-through rates, very high conversion rates, just because of the incredibly strong brand presence that they have within the market. So this is also an exception. If you spent above $10 million in the last few years across paid media, then you're generally going to have pretty good CPAs on new customer acquisition, just as a function of how much spend and how much brand awareness you already have. So the conclusion here is that a $50 CPA is great for new customer acquisition. If you can achieve a $50 new customer CPA, you're sitting in a very, very good position. Your marketing is dialed in, your paid media strategy is dialed in, your full funnel, the website conversion rate is dialed in. However, if you need a $50 CPA for you to be able to scale profitably, your brand unit economics are broken and they need fixing. You either need to increase your AOV significantly so that you can operate at these higher CPAs, or you need to increase your repeat purchasability and LTV so that you can operate at these higher CPAs. The third alternative, which is the hardest and it's outside the scope of this YouTube channel, is to look at your gross margins, your contribution margins, and make changes there. Renegotiate with suppliers so that you can sit at better gross contribution margins, and you can then therefore operate at higher CPAs as you begin to scale. Because a $50 CPA is achievable at a very small scale. It's also achievable at a very large scale when you have enormous brand presence. But right in the middle, it's very, very difficult to do, particularly if you zone in just on NCPA using a third-party attribution software in comparison to just looking at CPA in platform.